Hey, we're down here in Belle Glade, and up here there's a crop duster that's spraying a field, and these things they spray all sorts of poisons and stuff all over their farm, and we're going to show it to you today. All right, it's spraying a cornfield, so we're in a really good spot to get you some great video of this. There it is behind me. We're going to take a minute and talk about the poisons that are coming out of this airplane. Crop dusters spray a combination of herbicides and insecticides. The regulations for these guys are hardly ever enforced, so they basically can spray whatever they want. The environmental group called Pesticide Action Network, or PAN, has been conducting studies on aerial spraying, and they have concluded that planes are the most inefficient methods of chemical distribution. They have found that more than half of the aerial spraying misses its target, ending up in the environment and the adjacent waterways. These chemicals can also evaporate up to 7 days after applying and end up in our atmosphere. Furthermore, some of the most toxic pesticides are the ones that are lighter and therefore have a greater chance of drifting. PAN studies also have looked at the effects that these chemicals have on the human body, and they have found that they can cause cancer, Parkinson's disease, infertility, and other reproductive disorders. They also concluded that children are at greater risk because their bodies are still developing. In March of 2011, one of these planes were spraying a field right next to the Gove Elementary School in Belle Glade. There were students and teachers outside at the time of the spraying, and they all complained of burning eyes and feeling sick to their stomachs. They were sent home, and parents were told to immediately remove their clothing and give them a bath or shower. Really? Spraying next to an elementary school? Unbelievable. In the 1940s, farmers lost 7% of their crops to pests. 40 years later, in the 1980s, the use of pesticides have exploded, and the farmers' losses due to pests didn't go down. Instead, it almost doubled to 13%. This forced the farmers to use more and more pesticides, and in turn made the chemical makers incredibly rich and more powerful than ever, and you won't believe what they did next. They started working on genetically engineered crops that could tolerate stronger chemicals. So now the farmers had to buy new and improved chemicals and the genetically engineered seeds. The problem was, as these new chemicals were being introduced to the environment, the farmers that were not using the genetically engineered seeds started to see their crops die off because their plants couldn't take the stronger chemicals from the neighboring farms. So now, more and more farmers had to buy genetically engineered seeds. What a racket! In the 1990s, the scientists for the EPA began to see insects developing tolerances to these chemicals and warned the farmers to decrease the usage of these chemicals. The EPA even came up with a name for it. They called it the pesticide treadmill. The more pesticides a farmer applies, the more bugs become resistant to their chemicals. So the farmers were forced to use more and more dangerous chemicals on their crops. The same thing that was happening to insecticides were also happening to herbicides. Weeds were growing tolerances to the chemicals as well. The most damaging weed was called pigweed. The stems of this plant was so strong that farmers' combines couldn't even go through it. Entire fields were being lost because they couldn't be harvested. Today, scientists have discovered more than 1,000 new species of bugs and weeds that are classified as superbugs or superweeds. These new pests are a direct result of chemicals being sprayed all over our food. We got to get off this treadmill and urge our lawmakers to start standing up to these powerful chemical makers. Mother Nature has its own pesticides. Praying mantises eat grasshoppers, ladybugs eat aphids, birds, lizards, and frogs all eat insects. For every bad insect, nature has a predator to control it. We need to let Mother Nature do our pest control and stop the poison of our environment and our food supply. dusting at its best in the glades.